What would happen if the worst weekend of your career became one of the most memorable? Lewis Hamilton began the 2025 Belgian GP from the bottom of the Pittsburgh lane and ended up being acclaimed as the best driver on track. But how did he? What decisions were made? And why Ferrari, who seemed to be in crisis, now sees him as his savior? Stay, because what happened in Spa is much more than a simple comeback. From Friday, the signals were worrisome. In the only classification session of the sprint, the British pilot suffered such an atypical mistake that he himself found words to justify him. When blocking the rear wheels in the chicane, he ended up with a completely unusual spin in his career, something that he publicly confessed as, "the first time this happens to me." That phrase, as brief as forceful, was the symptom of a disconnection between pilot and car that Ferrari did not know how to solve in time. Hamilton finished 18, and in the sprint race he barely managed to climb to the 15th position, without rhythm, without trust, and clearly frustrated. But the worst was yet to come. In the main classification of Saturday, for a moment it seemed that he had recovered something in a form. A promising time located 7th, behind his partner Charles Leclerc, and inside the cut for Q2. However, a career management review determined that he had exceeded the track limits in the Rie-Dillon for few centimeters. That millimetric difference was enough to eliminate its return and relegate it to the 16th place. Second consecutive day outside Q1. An absolute disaster for a pilot with 7 world titles. What happened after Hamilton's qualifying disaster was not a simple course correction, but a master play from the shadows. Ferrari, far from sinking in the resignation for the lousy result of Saturday, decided to make one of the boldest decisions that have been seen in the 2025 season. With the morals beaten, but with a cold head, the Red Wall chose to deliberately violate the closed park regime to completely transform the SF25 of Lewis Hamilton. And they did know that the penalty was inevitable: departure from the Pittsburgh lane. But this is where strategic intelligence comes into play. If you are already practically at the bottom of the grill, why not turn that punishment into an advantage? Ferrari understood. They bet that with a new configuration adapted to wet conditions and a completely renewed power unit, they could give Hamilton a tool for more than survival. It was about giving him a weapon to attack. The equipment replaced not one, but all the key components of the hybrid system: internal combustion engine, turbo, MGUH, MGUK, drums, and electronics. In addition, they made changes in the suspension of the car, an illegal movement under the regulations of the closed park. The play was at the edge of the regulation. But in Ferrari it was not about playing for sure. It was all or nothing. These types of decisions are extremely unusual in leading teams because they involve publicly admitting that the car they have prepared throughout the week is poorly raised. It is an admission of technical failure. But it is also a sample of tactical courage. Ferrari acknowledged his mistakes, reinvented himself in one night, and dared to bet on a single factor: that Lewis Hamilton would be able to make the maximum performance under adverse climatic conditions. But not everything was intuition. The new configuration was not improvised. Ferrari worked during the early morning with simulation engineers to recalibrate the dynamics of the car. Changes in suspension angles, redistribution of braking balance, differential settings to improve wet traction. Each decision was designed for a single thing: give Hamilton the ability to dance on water. And while many would still digest their elimination in Q1, something different was breathed inside the red garage. No euphoria, but a tension loaded with hope. Not everyone saw it, but something was brewing. Because Ferrari had not only reconfigured a car, he had opted his technical prestige and his strategic credibility to the talent of a single man. And that man, wounded in pride but armed with experience and a tuned car for war, was about to show that sometimes the best victories begin with a penalty. Sunday dawned in Spa with a lead-gray sky that seemed to have no bottom. The rain, announced throughout the weekend, finally seized the circuit and completely changed the rules of the game. The beginning of the 2025 Belgian Grand Prix was postponed again and again. The conditions were so adverse that the career commissioners decided to wait more than an hour before authorizing the exit. During that period, the strategies became conjectures, the calculations became intuition, and the anxiety in the garages was mixed with the uncertainty of what was to come. From the first round, Hamilton was another. He was not the erratic man on Friday, nor the dejected on Saturday. It was the Lewis that has carved his legend on the wet asphalt. Each maneuver that executed had surgical precision. There were no hurry, but you didn't doubt. He moved with a naturalness that contrasted with the chaos that was deployed later. While some skated, they got out of track or made traction errors, he advanced with a perfect reading of the available grip. The public, which at the beginning barely repaired their position, began to notice an anomaly in partial times. Sector after sector, Ferrari number 44 marked constant improvements. While other pilots dealt with the subviring caused by the cold in the intermediate tires, Hamilton managed to heat his faster, thanks to a controlled aggressiveness that did not sacrifice stability. I knew exactly how much to attack without crossing the invisible line that separates the heroism from abandonment. And it wasn't just a matter of piloting. His communication with the wall was impeccable. Each message, each suggestion of change in the configuration of the steering wheel, every doubt about the ideal moment for the change of tires, everything came with a clarity and a millimeter synchronization. The Ferrari team, which has been criticized for strategic errors so many times, this time responded with intelligence and speed. The time to mount extreme rain tires was executed with surgical precision. Each decision was the result of a constant data flow, but also of the renewed trust between pilot and engineers. On the track, Hamilton began advancing not only half-table cars, but also direct rivals. It exceeded both Alpine with maneuvers calculated in conditions of null visibility. He went to Behrman Haas on the outside in Pahon, a movement that demanded not only value but blind faith in the residual grip. Even as the water continued to fall and the puddles accumulated, its SF-25 modified at the last moment seemed increasingly comfortable. It was a symphony between man and machine, as if the car had been designed exclusively for that storm. The comeback was not an explosion of positions won at once, but a meticulous climb. From 20th to 7th place in 44 laps. But what really transformed this race into a milestone was not the figures. It was the form. The execution. The ability to impose a constant rhythm while the rest survived. The way in which a pilot, on a track on the edge of the impracticable, rewrite in real time the meaning of the word control. The 2025 Belgian Grand Prix will be remembered not only for what happened on the track, but for the repercussions it generated outside it. What Lewis Hamilton achieved that rainy Sunday in Spa was not simply a comeback or feat under adverse conditions. It was a declaration of intentions. A clear sign that, although Ferrari does not have the best grid car, it does have a pilot capable of tilting the balance with pure determination and technical mastery. The classification of builders was still far from defining, but Belgium marked a psychological turning point. Hamilton's comeback activated a counterattack mentality within the Italian team. It was not just a matter of recovering ground in the table, but of recovering pride. Spa served as a catalyst for a new internal dynamic. More communication between technical departments, more aggressive strategic decisions, and a common vision that there is still championship for fighting. 4 days, the specialized press dedicated entire pages to analyze each sector of Hamilton's career. Telemetry experts disassembled their return, highlighting how he was able to adapt to variable conditions with precision that was not seen from his best days in Mercedes. The fans also played their part. The voting percentage for Pilot of the Day, close to 40%, was not only a sample of respect, but of identification. The audience did not reward the winner of the race, but the tireless fighter. To the veteran who, in his year number 18 in F1, continues to demonstrate that he has something to say. That emotional connection between pilot and public revived the general interest in Ferrari. Social networks were filled with comparisons with other historical comebacks. There was talk of the Hamilton of Turkey 2020, of Brazil 2021, by Silverstone 2008, and now of Spa 2025. In summary, what happened in Belgium not only added 6 points to Ferrari's locker. He redefined the narratives around the team and his star pilot, reconfigured the psychological dynamics of the championship. And above all, he sent a clear message to the rest of the world: Ferrari is not dead. And with Hamilton behind the wheel, you can still make history. This was not a simple race in the rain. It was the birth of a threat, a warning, a spark that can set the second half of the championship. Lewis Hamilton's comeback in Spa was not simply a moral victory. It was a reminder that even in a sport so dominated by engineering, passion, intuition, and individual courage, they can still make a difference. Belgium did not deliver a trophy to Hamilton. He did not upload it to the podium. But he did return something that, at the beginning with Ferrari, seemed to drain between his fingers: the narrative, the ability to control the story, to convert adversity into epic. Because while many focus on the immediate results, on the points, on the titles, there is something that defines the season's equal or even more: the moments. The actions that are recorded in the memory of the fans and that generate loyalty, emotion, and hope. Hamilton delivered one of those moments in Spa. So the question that I leave is not rhetorical but strategic. Do you think this was a simple flash of genius in extreme conditions? or the beginning of a deep transformation within the Ferrari team? Are we seeing the Hamilton who wants to close his career with Gloria, or to one who barely begins his last great crusade? Leave it in the comments. Do you also think that Belgium was the real beginning of his era in Ferrari? What do you think of the technical decision to change the car, completely violating the closed park? Was it a genius, despair, or both at the same time? Because if Hamilton can turn the grille bottom into an unforgettable show, you can turn this channel into your confidence reference in the current Formula 1.